So the last time I think I spoke at AI Sweden, a good colleague of mine, Ola Bernstrom, had me speak about 5 years ago at a kickoff event for AI Sweden. And I talked about automated vehicles, which is a large part of my work in general. And I urge everybody in the room to go back and look at the text of that talk, which I believe still is online, and my key TEDx talk from about 5 years ago on the trajectory of automation and how it is impacting us, because I think it has a lot of synergies to the AI side. The screwdriver here is just one of many tools we all have in our home. And how do we pick the right tools for the right problems? And how do we think about the future a little bit differently here? So first things first, we're all a bunch of bright people in this room. It's 11 a.m. or just after here in Sweden. It's 5 a.m. in my brain back on the East Coast in the US. So class participation is 85%. What is artificial intelligence? Anybody? Come on. Math? I like that. Annika, how to make computers do what they do in movies? Anybody else? I like that one. So we can look all over the web. Everybody can go around and try to find a definition, but here's one I love. The definition refers to the simulation of human intelligence by machines. Okay, we understand that. But it's an ever-changing definition because between the moment that I started my talk today and right now, our definition of what machines can do has changed. Technology to simulate humans better, and moment by moment, the capabilities of AI are being reinvented. When we talk to experts, we can begin to think about how AI means different things to different people. So we have a tendency to talk past each other all the time. Researchers talk of it one way. Technology developers, another way. Politicians, investors, consumers, all see the world differently here. So we have a tendency to talk by each other. The research community, can I separate cats and dogs better? The basics of computer vision. Developers, how can I make money with this application? Politicians, what are the risks to my society? Investors, market potential. How much can the value of Tesla go up? Or in the other way, go down. Short the stock these days. Consumers want things to do things for them. And day by day, there's always a new topic related to AI in the news. Some cool new innovation, some limiting factor, some risk. We can't keep track of it. There is not an individual in this room who can keep track of the speed and the complexity in which the AI innovation space is moving. So let's use a study point here, a part that's near and dear to my heart. Automated vehicles were predicated on the advancements of AI. Just about a decade ago, quite frankly, the DARPA Urban Challenge was a little over a decade ago now. Many folks out there believed that we were going to solve AV-related topics overnight. I'd be able to take a fully autonomous robot from the front of the Ericsson building here to the airport. Well, that hasn't come to fruition, and nor do I expect in my lifetime that truly to come to fruit. Many different organizations out there are working on different aspects of this, whether it's operational complexities between the US and China that differ, limitations on sensing and compute that we know are problematic in our evolution to that level of autonomy, and a safety case that we need to think about. The overhype and under-delivery of these products. Tesla's going to develop a robotaxi, and it's going to be released on August 8th. Anybody waiting to see how this works? When we think about different perspectives and different beliefs, human capital is going to remain a coveted commodity in how we do things, even with the most advances that we can think of in automation and AI. How do we build systems that move to produce revenue that allows for more innovation and more investment over time? It's not to say that research isn't important, but we can't invest in research forever. So when we think about automation here, we now have AI skeptics and AI experts saying, maybe this won't happen. The Association of Computing Machinery, again, those folks that really think about the Turing test, published a piece 2 weeks ago. Maybe automated vehicles without humans' active attention aren't possible. Piece in Auto News, $204 billion poured into automated vehicles, as quoted by McKinsey. And what have fatality curves done globally? They're about stagnant. My best, and I want to read this to you, is the quote from Rodney Brooks earlier this year. For those of you who don't know who Rodney is a preeminent computer scientist, roboticist. He ran the MIT computer science lab, founded a few companies, including iRobot. I spent my whole professional life developing robots, and my companies have built more of them than anyone else. And this is true. But I can assure you that as a driver in San Francisco during the day, I was getting pretty frustrated with driverless Cruise and Waymo vehicles doing stupid things that I saw and experienced every day. This is one of the world's most preeminent roboticists. So it's no mystery why, as humans, we are questioning whether these technologies can evolve to support us. And the politicians around us are saying, from a regulatory perspective, how do I control or how do I manage this? It's not just in the US, it's in the EU, it's in every country within Europe. And it also stems over to Asia. So my colleague, Missy Cummings, a couple months ago, published a really nice piece on what self-driving cars tell us about AI risks. Human errors in operations get replaced by human errors in coding. No mystery. Humans make mistakes. To err is human. AI failures are often hard to predict, whether that's in robots on the road or that's in AI systems in the lab or in production. Probabilistic estimates do not approximate judgments under uncertainty. Managing AI, again, is more or just as important as building AI. Think about that. We invest $1 billion in building an AI system, and we need to invest $1 billion or more in managing that AI system. So we think about investments, we also think about the investments of building the platform. I look at the auto industry right now, building more complex AI platforms and vehicles, and have no perception forward into the investment in the management of that platform over its duty cycle. What we think about cybersecurity vulnerabilities today, that has nothing to do with what cybersecurity vulnerabilities could be in 10 years, but this car is still going to be traversing the roads of the world. AI has system-level implications that just can't be ignored. So, the great thing about AI in some senses, we can also pull the plug. We can shut down the system. We shut down the cars. If we fail, the consumer perceptions of that will impact generations to come. So, as some of you know, I sit on an advisory board for the U.S. Department of Transportation. I'm involved in many conversations globally around societal questions around AI. And in no particular order, these societal questions are huge, giant mountains. The fear of the unknown is driving political implications globally. We don't know what to assume. Politicians and their aides many times don't have the education to understand and question biases, security, replicability, data ownership, questionable use, malactors, workforce impacts, decision support versus decision replacement, life or death decisions are all topics that we could spend hours, if not days, if not months, if not years talking about. Think about some of what has come out in the last few months. The US policies towards AI are evolving, limiting the benefit of some of the AI systems that we developed just a year or two ago. Sam Altman coming out the World Economic Forum. AI should not be making life or death decisions. has, as a society, as a country in Europe, as a country in the United States or Asia, these are societal decisions that we need to get our hands around. Biases dominate the news, dominate discussions. But you know what? Maybe bias models are really okay at times. Long ago, we would develop a bias model for a reason. If we want to understand how women make decisions, understanding a bias model on women may make sense. The question is not whether the model is biased or not. The model is, what is the application for? How is it supposed to be transparent? Where is it supposed to be used? Key being here is that there are calls for bias. There are calls against bias, and we as a society need to understand these. Workforce impacts are huge. Topic of discussion globally among many different societies in the world. Security, conversation this morning. So we can go on and on here, and unfortunately, Mott's only gave me 20 or 25 minutes, so I better limit this conversation a little bit. But I'll challenge this group to think a bit. And one of the things that I think that folks need to think a little bit about here is how, as a community, we begin to balance the needs and the risks and the rewards of AI. Because unless we balance these together as humans, we're just not going to take the risks we probably should in certain situations. And other situations, we're going to take too much risk. So it all becomes a balance. And we very rarely step back, step up a level, and think about that balance. Okay? We can think about edge cases to start. In AI systems, there always are going to be edge cases that were outside of the engineering assumptions of the model that in certain instances will create brittleness. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something we have to appreciate and balance the risks and the rewards between. Automation has changed the nature of work and will continue to. Careful planning will enable new opportunities. Many of us don't drive manual transmissions anymore. Why? Because automation automated the process of shifting vehicles. It's not a problem. Automation has also changed education. It's changed how we do research. We talked about this morning about how you would never build a machine learning model from scratch anymore. It's good. Not a bad thing. It's just changed the nature of work, and we have to learn to think about probabilistically predicting how it may change work in the future, and then adapting to those probabilities. Misuse and overuse of technology, whether it's AI or other, doesn't necessarily call for regulation to prevent innovation for the foreseeable future, if not ever. It may actually call for more guardrails. How do we ensure we are being responsible actors today, tomorrow, and next week, but not limiting our innovation for decades, if not centuries to come? It's much easier for the regulatory world to shut down innovation than it is to strategically encourage it through reasonable and reputable methods. We should have seen guardrails around the development of automation technology on our roads enacted years ago. But there is so much fear in the market and incapability of our regulatory systems to adapt to evolving technology. It never happened. And that's what's probably helped accelerate the demise of the automated vehicle space in the US and many other global economies. Thinking about how do we just move towards responsible development. Any lawyers in the room? Folks with backgrounds in legal? I see smiles here. Look, liability is going to shift from the user to the developer. The only question is how. Corporations are going to hold long-term liability around their development decisions. There was a chatbot story out of Canada a few weeks ago, or a few months ago at this point, where an individual trying to fly on a bereavement ticket was provided false information by the chatbot, and the airline was held liable and responsible. Interesting case study, but that's going to happen more and more. And finally, society is really probably not ready for AI systems without human oversight to make big picture decisions. We will get there, but it is an evolution not a revolution of how automation impacts us. I'm not saying we want to slow down and crawl and we don't want to move. What I am saying is that we have to move the populace along with us. If we overstep our bounds of what people are comfortable with, we will actually end up taking longer to get to the end game of where we'd like to go. So I'm going to give folks a few things to think about here, because Mott's challenged me to be forward, provocative, and to challenge common thought. So how about we start thinking about prioritizing AI that supports or augments human capabilities versus replacing human intelligence? What does this mean? This means we can think about new methods versus applications. Tools sitting on the shelf, and try to invest a little more in applying those tools as opposed to creating new tools tomorrow. Black box versus open box. How do we begin to get beyond hiding what the training data was and developing and devising new ways of disclosing the training data and the methods? Optimized versus robust. Google Maps today provides me less useful navigation information than it did 5 years ago. It tries to hyper-optimize the route, often taking me off exits to save a few seconds, which ends up, if traffic dynamics don't move properly, costing me a few minutes. So thinking about the robustness of a design versus the optimization of a design. As I said earlier, decision support versus decision replacement. As much as I believe that at some point, well beyond my lifetime, artificial general intelligence will take over, for the foreseeable future, we as humans are a key component of the equation. Central compute versus distributed. Network limitations will be here. Distributed compute, edge learning has continued and even more promise. Artificial and general intelligence versus human-centered. How do we use the technology to support humankind, as opposed to why are we enamored with replacing humankind? Building skills, trust, and experience with AI-driven systems can smooth and perhaps accelerate our evolution towards new systems and implementations of AI and robotics in society. A human-centered focus will help mitigate some of the fears of the unknown. We as humans hate the unknown. We're scared of it. Kids, frightful of the dark. That's back in the back of our brains. It is critical that we rapidly think about augmenting these fears, increasing trust, and decreasing the roadblocks out there. So let's think about a few applications here. Humans provide opinions and hallucinate. We've all told fairy tale stories, haven't we? Why do we think AI should be any different? We programmed it. We built it. To err as humans and machines are just deviations of humans. Any freestyle skiers, cross-country ice skaters in the room? Any ice skaters in the room? If you were to go to an ice skating competition and there was only one judge to tell you how good your routine is, would you trust that? No. That's why you have 3, 4, 5 different judges all looking at it from a different opinion. No mystery. We are looking for multiple judges or jury members to try a case because everybody has a different opinion, and nor should we trust any AI system. If you look at sociological or psychological research, we have this thing called inter-coder reliability. Because if you allow one individual to interpret something, they bring a bias to that. Look at 2, 3, 4 different opinions, weighing those together. Finally, building consensus. You sit in a meeting, one opinion doesn't necessarily become the dominating factor. You're listening to different opinions, trying to build a consensus approach. So, thinking about this in the AI terms, maybe that's ChatGPT versus Gemini, how they both produce information, synthesizing those together to try to provide a more neutral or balanced opinion. Or maybe That's the human versus the AI system, each having value in the equation. We also need to accept that the future may be of novice doers. Many of us in the room remember learning to write. My kids don't learn cursive writing anymore. No time, no interest. They type. Is that good or bad? Think about today, we write. Think about tomorrow, we ask ChatGPT to provide us a draft edit from. Where is this okay? Where do we need to shy away from this? AI will erode fundamentally what was once core human skills. That might be okay. We need to think about where that's okay and where that's not okay. And we got to think about what new skills AI will develop in us. Well, what's one of those skills? Trying to understand and build a model of where AI may be hallucinating and where it's not. That's no difference from understanding where a human would hallucinate and where it's not. Building the trust model and which of our neighbors, which of our friends we are willing to trust. We can't avoid this. We need to embrace it. We need to leverage this change to think forward. If we don't embrace it, we won't evolve. But we need to look at the guardrails required to think forward. So building trust in AI and the evolving systems around it may be the critical component to thinking forward. Transparency is king. Trust is built over time and eroded very quickly. But when I understand what is going on, I am much more likely to build my trust in the system. First impressions matter hugely. If I like it, how it feels, how it touches, I'll invest my time to learn and leverage it. If it's fearful, I'll shy away. Under-promising, over-delivering, the model of Honda. Folks are excited and delighted by something that performs better than their expectations. It triggers us to invest time and resources to understand. Biases can't be eliminated. They need to be acknowledged, perhaps tracked, improved over time, but that's okay. We have to start somewhere and we need to evolve from that. We got to be transparent about it. Network limitations will probably always be the limiting factor. Our ability, our logistics capability of moving stuff, whether it's through pipelines, whether it's through wires. Moving information has huge costs. So that means that edge computing, edge learning are all areas we should be thinking about of how do you leave the information where it is and leverage it. Sustainability, an important global topic, cannot be ignored. There are energy costs, there are decisions, and there are times where those are absolutely warranted. But there are times where we need to be also thinking about the waste that we are triggering. There is a glut of cell phones now in a recycling problem in the world because we all, quite frankly, want newer ones faster. How do we deal with some of this? We're creating the same model with battery electric vehicles at the moment. So the challenge looking forward is really a new mindset where we effectively match problems, the tools we have to build solutions. There are absolutely areas of innovation that especially demand where the private sector and the public sector work together to optimally, sustainably, and efficiently harness the power of change. Change isn't easy. We as humans are creatures of habit. We don't really like to change quickly. We need to be incentivized to at times. We need to find reasons to evolve. But we will achieve far more if we accept that the softer side of science, how we as humans interact with all of this, consumer interest, is probably more important than the algorithmic and the data side of science. Unless there is a market, there is no need for a product. So the difficulty here is really in finding the right balance between humans and machines, societal benefits and self-interests. We all want to be put first, but at the end of the day, societal interests need to be balanced in. To build the stakeholders and support network to ensure that the right tools are used for the right problems and the right reasons. These are very difficult topics to touch on because we all have self-interests. We all want certain things. But how do we balance that with the societal side? You know, bringing this back to my bread and butter and driving. We all like to move in our own car, but societally, we should be put together for efficiency purposes. Steel on steel rail is the most efficient way to move people, cargo. But yet, how many of us have flown between Gothenburg and Stockholm? So parting thought here. Given that a random advisor of any category, picked off the street, is equally likely to provide you above and below average advice, one's got to begin to ponder. When should we replace professional or non-professional advice with AI? Under what conditions are we best served to leverage and weigh the advice of AI? And how can we trust this over time? So I'm going to make a financial position decision here and ask all of you to think about this. You're going to invest a couple $100, a couple $1,000, and you're going to go out and find an advisor to help you do that. Do we trust that that advisor is going to provide you above average results? Or might that advisor provide you below average results? The AI that exists today is probably going to give you an above average answer. Where should that be weighted? We all go to the doctor. There's great doctors. There's not as good doctors. The AI is probably better than the average doctor. Where should we be weighting this decision? How should it influence our decisions on advice in the future? Where should we begin to trust the AI? How should we weight that with the expertise? We can think about radiology as a great example here. Radiology has integrated vast amounts of computer vision with human expertise to provide a more robust solution to detection of abnormalities in imagery. It's not and has never said that we are going to do best by leveraging vision alone, or said we have to stay with the tried and true of history and medical experience. It's probably about the medical domain that's done the best over the last 10 to 15 years of integrating the two. And that is the challenge that I leave this audience with here. How do we leverage AI and human expertise together to begin innovating forward? And with that, if time allows, I'll answer any questions.